I'm getting ready for Quilt Festival in Houston. Laura and I will have our booth. We'll be in booth 839. I hope you come by and see us. But I'm also going to be machine quilting over in the Fairfield booth. And what I did to get ready for that is I took all of these different battings that Fairfield makes. You can come and see them in their booth. And I've made little sandwiches using 505 spray to hold them all together. And the sandwiches are all about 18 inches square, and I'm going to do different designs on them. This is a good exercise for all of us to do, to take different battings and try out different samples and try different threads on them and see if we like them. Hope you'll come by the Fairfield booth and watch me machine quilting demo. I'll also have some of my machine quilting books for sale while I'm at their booth, and in our booth too. See you there. One of the things that you need to know how to do if you're going to be doing machine quilting is know how to remove your throat plate and clean out your bobbin area, depending on how your machine is set up. Mine has just two little screws that come out. I use a little screwdriver that came with my machine, and then I can lift out my metal bobbin plate, or throat plate I should say, and look at all that gunk that's in there. I've been machine quilting. Look at all that gunk that's in there. I've been machine quilting for a while now, and it's gotten dirty, and I've got lint in there, and my bobbin case lifts out like so, and you can see even more of the lint that's in there. And I'm going to take a brush now and clean it out, and my bobbin requires a little bit of oil, and I'm going to put that in. And when I put my throat plate back on, I'm going to put in, instead of the one I had on, I'm going to put in a single needle throat plate, and that will also help with my machine quilting because it'll make the hole smaller, and I'll have less likelihood of the fabric and the quilt pulling in through that hole. Here's what the double one looks like. See, it's a bigger opening so that we can use our zigzag stitches. One of the things that I like to do with my machine quilting to help make sure that my stitches always look great is I almost always match my top thread color with my bobbin thread. Now, not everybody does this, but I like to do it, and that just helps eliminate any issues I might have if I'm having some tension issues on my machine. So I'm getting ready to quilt up some sample squares for my demo in the booth, in the Fairfield booth at Houston this year in 2012. That's booth 936. And I'm going to start out using this 30 weight rayon, and I've got a 50 weight cotton in my bobbin, and the colors are matching. I think it's important also to use the right kind of needle when you are machine quilting. You need to use what's called a sharp needle, and I'm working with rayon right now, and I like to use an embroidery needle. They have a sharp shank, and they're intended to be used with embroidery thread. When I use silk, which I like to use a lot, this is YLI silk, I'm going to use what's called a microtex needle, and they're designed to work with silk or monofilament. And then when I'm using cotton, I like to use a quilting needle. They're designed to work with the cotton. These are all sharp shank needles that I'm working with when I'm quilting. You could also use a top stitching needle or a jeans needle. And when you're piecing, you want to use a universal needle because it's designed to separate the fabric, the fibers, when you're piecing them together. So I have 4 different types of needles that I use when I'm working on my quilts, and I think that each one has its own job to do, and I have better results when I use the right kind of needle. I've made up a whole bunch of sandwiches out of the different battings that Fairfield manufactures, and I'm going to machine quilt them to see how they look with the different threads that I like to use and what kind of effects I can get. Before I start any machine quilting, I like to bring my bobbin thread up to the top, so I just take a little manual stitch, and then I'm going to pull that kind of and that will bring my bobbin thread. There's my bobbin thread, here's my top thread, and now before I start quilting, I'm going to hold those. I'm going to put the needle right back in the hole that it came out of, right there. I'm going to hold these on the side so that they won't get tangled up on the back of my project when I'm quilting. And I'm going to bury the threads later on when I'm done quilting, and I'll show you that. This is my sample for the booth in Houston. For the Fairfield booth, I'm going to demo different types of machine quilting, and this one is on their 100% polyester American Spirit batting. And I started it with these little swirlies, loop-de-loops, curlicues, and then went into swirls, and then made some designs that incorporated the swirls, and finally did some little frog eggs is what I like to call them. People are calling them pebbles now, to fill in between my swirl designs. And now I want to, if you notice, I've got all these different threads on the surface of my piece, and now I want to go in and bury some of my threads. So what I like to do with my threads is to bring the bottom thread up to the top when I am quilting. So what I like to do with my threads is bring the bottom thread up to the top before I start quilting, and then I'm going to take both of those little threads and I'm going to make a knot right here on the surface. This keeps all of my threads out from behind while I'm quilting. And then I'm going to use a self-threading needle. It has a little notch at the top right there and allows me to take both of those threads and then just pull them right through the top of my needle. And now I can take that and place it right back in where the threads came out of and pull it tight. Give it a little tug, and my knot will go inside my quilt sandwich, and then while I'm holding it tight, I can clip it, and now all of my threads are buried on the inside of my little quilt. That's how I handle all the threads when I'm quilting. One of the reasons why I like to bury my threads is to avoid getting little knots on the back of my quilt. This is the back of that little sandwich, and I didn't hold my threads right there, and look at that knot I've got on the back. Yuck. Also, one of the other reasons why I want to have a nice sandwich to practice on before I start my quilt is to make sure that my tension is good. Right over here when I first started, my tension was a little off. And I left this so you guys could see it, and then I corrected it, and then the tension became nice and even back and front. You know, they put the tension dial on the front of our machines so that we can adjust our tension when we're working with different types of threads. You shouldn't be afraid of your tension and adjusting it so that you do have good tension top and bottom. And you should, when you're adjusting your tension, make sure that you do little adjustments, not big ones, and so that you can tell what you have done and which way you need to go to correct your tension problems.